welcome to LaunchLeft Podcast. I'm your host, Rain Phoenix. Today's very special guest is Adria Petty, and she'll be launching Amy Helm on the pod. Don't forget, rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft. And I don't know if you noticed, but our background's a bit different. We are coming to you from Licorice Pizza in Studio City, California. So happy to be partnering with them for a few episodes and this very special one with Adria Petty. Please welcome Adria to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. My goodness, we have so much in common, I feel like, and maybe, maybe we start with loss because that's something I definitely know we have in common, and we share that with the rest of the world out there too. And I don't know if you know, but I lost my dad in 2015 suddenly. Yeah, he was hopefully supposed to be getting better and then just didn't wake up one morning. And that shock, like, I know what that's like. And the feeling of something about losing a parent was especially different than the loss of even my brother, which was horrible. Obviously, but losing a parent had this archetypal pain. Yeah. Did you notice a difference? I'm sure you've had other losses, like and again, if you don't feel comfortable even talking about it.
No, I do feel comfortable. It's the anniversary of my father's death, 7 years yesterday. And I knew I was coming here the day after. And, we are bonded by losing loved ones that were famous to drug overdoses, And, my dad died from a series of complications, but ultimately fentanyl killed him. And, I've never spoken about it. And it's 7 years later, and I feel an obligation to speak about it because so many people experience it. And, what's left when someone dies like that is an incredible hole, because you really don't get to make peace with, or prepare yourself or your mind for this chasm that comes and this sort of big, icky darkness that just washes over everyone and disappears and comes back whenever it wants to, And I think for me personally, I'm really grateful that my dad taught me about spirituality, taught me about Yogananda, taught me about looking at life a little bit deeper than just what's here in front of us. And to me, it has been this real act of devotion to be in the estate and get to know him better and get that extra 10 years I didn't get with him by getting to know him in his own words and in his own actions and study him and his philosophies and get to know the good and bad and ugly even deeper. And, I think my takeaway from it, and I'd be interested to know what yours is too, is that people don't talk about death. They're really uncomfortable with aging. They're really uncomfortable with death. And it can happen to any of us at any time. And there's no reason to fear it. You have to honor the time when you're alive with people and enrich that deeper. And treasure that more, and choose your words carefully as if somebody might not be there, And I think that for me, when Dad died, I had this supreme download, almost like a cosmic download of every moment, every interaction, every inflection point of being trained and molded by someone who shared DNA with me, And I think that download doesn't ever stop. Yeah. Those moments creep up on you. I was somewhere and just thinking about this time that my dad played me Van Morrison's "Have I Told You Lately That I Love You," and called me in a room and said, sit here, and hit play on it in the 90s, and really kind of dedicated that song to me in a quiet room for 4 minutes, And I just started crying in the shower, just thinking, God, what a sweet man, what a sweet moment, And I just collect those gems and build up as much light from him that I can, But there's a lot of darkness that comes when a celebrity dies too. And a huge invasion of privacy that, I lived in New York my whole life. I was a director. I didn't work with the Heartbreakers except when they wanted me to, when they wanted me to come in and fix something or work on running down a dream, the career spanning stuff or whatever. But I was very separate from this business, and I was financially independent from my dad for 20 years as a director. So we had a phenomenal relationship. We just had a very clean and loving and respectful and very deep relationship. And to lose him is so devastating for me personally, but it's even weirder because everyone fucking walks up to me and acts like it was their dad that was lost and wants to assault me with death stories no matter what I might be doing at any given time and take me back to that moment where he died. No public person has the restraint. You know, and you think about that, like if you were JFK's kids and he got murdered and everybody walked up and said, the day your dad died, here's what was happening with me. Right. Those words, the day your dad died, just take you down this shit tunnel, you know? I had to literally go to therapy to train my brain not to react to those words. Wow. Because it happens to me so often. And at the same time, I realized what an honor it is to be Tom's daughter, what an honor it is to be an ambassador to this work of the beautiful Heartbreakers and Tom, and, you know, to watch somebody really live the American dream, literally boots from Gainesville to here, like you did with your brother. And, you know, I feel, I do feel a tenderness towards people to open myself up to, hey, you can survive the worst shit ever. You can. And the way you survive it is by honoring who they were and not owning the pain. Like, it's not yours to begin with. You don't need to identify with their mistakes, their pain, but you can sort of identify and speak out about enablers or normalizing, you know, mixing drugs or doing, you know, the kind of people that are around people who create an environment where this kind of shit can happen, even with people who are conscientious and intelligent and loving. You know, and who are maybe not even drug addicts. Do you know what I mean? But just in the wrong fucking place at the wrong time with the wrong people. And, you know, people often don't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about, oh, how great is this guy or whatever. But it's important to talk about it because these people that people worship are human beings. And they become objectified into things. I often call it the thingification of dad. You know, and my dad fought so hard not to become a thing, and really gave him his real self to people. And somehow we still deal with that callousness, you know?
Yeah, it seems very like a cultural thing, you know, this like fame being somehow dominating over trying to discover the realness in people. You know what I mean? It's like it's better to deify than to bring down, to sort of everyone be equal. There has to be this sort of like better thans. Right. Sort of the way culturally we're set up. But I do think that people like your dad who sort of did it their way. Chris Christopherson is another example. There's so many amazing artists who, you know, I feel like my brother did too, who have come before, and they really do it their way, regardless of what the society or culture.
Their compassion.
Exactly. And I just admire that so much about your dad and the connection with Gainesville. That's another area that I feel really like we have that in common. Yeah. I know you didn't grow up there as a kid, but for us, like we would go to what they called the Tom Petty house for like punk rock parties, where I guess he had lived. Like in the late 80s, we lived in Gainesville. Yeah. And so like that was one of the things that we would do. You know, they'd be like, everyone's go to the Tom Petty house for bands later, who's coming. And so we had this sort of like, Tom Petty, wow, Tom Petty, I guess, lived here. We discovered him as a Gainesvillian while living there. We didn't know that because he seemed very California forward. Yeah. Right. But I love hearing about his early years too, and knowing that he had that band Mudcrutch in the 70s ahead of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And then he went on to, from what I understand, reform with them in 2007 to do a live record that he put out. What was that? How cool was that?
Cool thing in the world. It's got such a great story behind it. When we were doing Running Down a Dream with Peter Bogdanovich, my dad stepped into the editing room at the last minute because Peter was lagging and there was a deal for delivering this movie, which is why it's so long. They really didn't have enough time to edit it. So Tom went in and looked at every single interview, and I had them all transcribed. And one was with Tom Ledden from Mudcrutch, whose brother Bernie Ledden was in the Eagles. And Tom was like this incredible musician and singer. And ended up sort of just hanging out in Gainesville and teaching lessons, like so many great musicians do. And my dad watched this interview top to bottom, and he said to me, Adria, I got to tell you, he's the only one that never showed up asking for anything, only loved me, only wanted to be my friend, could have shown up all these 40 years asking me for anything, I would have given it to him. And that was such a touching moment for me to watch Tom's perspective on me. I really want to see him again. And so he called them to stay with him in Malibu with the intention of reforming the band, so cool. Gave them all the royalties to these records so that they could have a little something coming in. But for the most part, I think they got pretty much everything. And then he pulled out some songs that he had for a really long time and put them on these like records that are super abstract, like, that you would never know. The other one's two bears dancing with each other, but nobody would know Tom Petty's involved with this record at all. But they're just as good as a Tom Petty record. They're ripping. And he let some of the other guys sing their own songs. And Benmont has a really cool song on one of them. I think This Is a Good House. And he got sort of the core Gainesville group back together and had a blast. And while he did, he had Randall Marsh and Tom Ledden live with him during that entire time in Malibu in our guest houses. And they were just like old times, making fun of how one another made a sandwich or whatever, but it was a very, very cool, very humble and very real, just bro down that happened, basically.
Yeah, and I think soon after that, or no, maybe that was this one, the Tom Petty, the Southern accents.
Yes.
That also has some, just I guess, based on the title, it brings to mind, Gainesville to me, like that he was, and that title track is so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean,
the Dolly Parton version, have you heard that?
Yeah, I actually was listening to the Tom version, and I ended up just scrolling all the comments, and a lot of them were like, got here because of Dolly. Because I hadn't heard it yet. I still haven't. I'll listen to it on the way
just
home.
Bring it to I mean, I met her and I literally couldn't stop crying like while I was meeting her because the song was playing in the background and it was just like, oh, the song's about my grandmother. Aww. And he's like, just a minute there, I was dreaming. She was standing there with me, and it's a very personal song. It was written right after my grandmother died. And I remember my dad really just aching over that song. It was a big deal.
Wow.
Yeah, the Dolly version is something else. I mean, Tom's version's the one, but the Dolly version's a different kind of feeling to a reverence and bigness that is mind-blowing.
Well, you just shared something about, your dad writing that after your grandmother died. And I know you're an artist, you're a director, video director, film director. You've been in the creative field for a long time. You've built your own career. Yeah. You have your own accolades, like you were sharing. Do you find that when things are tough, you turn to art? Is that something that for you, similar,
I do. I mean, I believe the power of art to be very important. And at a time where we are becoming more and more co-opted by algorithms and distractions, we have to fight to rewire our mind to connect to this universal understanding. When we feel lonely, music, poetry, movies, they can make us feel understood. They don't just help us escape from what we're currently in, but they help us see more in ourselves, more perseverance, more poetry, even if it's dark, more identity. They help us hone our identity. And I think, the reason that I can sit and look at my dad and listen to his music for 7 years after a lifetime of hearing it is because it soothes me and it feeds me to listen to his poetry. His sincerity soothes me. And I know it's real because I was there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's nothing fake about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I feel the same way about Amy Helm, who we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Like, when you hear something and like even like Norah Jones, Come Away With Me, it's like, is that like the most sincere record? Like the frequency of that record, no matter who you are, is just, and it's soft rock, it's whatever, but that will just level you as a person. It has a magical effect on your nervous system, To me, all that stuff is phenomenally important. And what I think is also phenomenally important is if you're in that industry, to be someone of great character and someone of great business practices and great decency, because then you mold a standard bearer. So my job with Dad is also doing that. We're a powerful estate. We're a big estate. We need to run it ethically. We need to run it with great character. We need to run it with great deference for the future of this music. We have to run Tom Petty radio like that. And we also have to acknowledge the male-dominated culture the Heartbreakers come from and open that door to women. And say, hey, there's a lot of women making rock and roll music or carrying on Americana tradition. They need to be seen. They missed their careers during COVID too, And I find that role that we have, me, my sister, my stepmother, and my mother, to say, you know what? We all basically, we might not go to Olive Garden and have dinner together, but we all share the basic moral fiber and fabric of right and wrong in our minds. And right and wrong really breaks down to, we don't oppress people for their gender, their color, or their religious beliefs. We don't oppress other people, period. And we respect everyone's ability to be able to dream this American dream that we were so lucky to benefit from. And that, in whatever capacity, whatever small capacity, we're able to use Dad's memory and his voice for that. That to me is a very exciting thing because, we've been able to work with every town on, safe gun laws, common sense gun laws, not gun prohibition, but gun laws that, protect us. We've been able to donate to Planned Parenthood in the last year, and we've really invested a lot into Gainesville. So we do a huge promotion with UF to not only endow the music program there, but also to help with educating kids in Title I schools and helping the working homeless. So we do a ton of work in those areas to remember Tom too, which is so important. That's such a big part of the guy that was making that music.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I love the Gainesville connection piece because it's always been close to my heart. I love that city, and I count it as home, even though, I didn't move there till I was a teen, but it was the formative years I spent there. And so it really became home, and I love the South, and I love Florida because I love Gainesville. And, I think that people are people wherever they are. And the more that we can come together and see each other's shared humanity, the better this world will be. This sort of like hating one state or feel, just.
Well, we have to. We have to. And the thing is, it's, I was raised in like a pretty middle of my dad was super liberal, but he was also very understanding towards anyone who didn't share his views. Exactly. He always had a lot of respect for America, and that, hey, that guy might not have the luxury of caring about gay rights because he doesn't have any food.
Right.
And he's stressed out about that, and that sort of philosophy definitely sticks with me of like, you got to meet people where they are. You can't expect people who don't understand these issues or don't have them in their immediate purview to champion them at the level that others do.
Right.
And we have to take care of everybody.
Yeah. Right.
I get that,
Yeah.
And so, you've got to think about the biggest problem in this country in terms of like unity and bringing people together is also all these liberal people need to have some basic human respect for these people that don't share their views.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's also, that little come to Jesus has to occur too, for America to be back in a conversation, but
Absolutely.
you got to regulate tech to do that too.
I know that's a whole, I didn't mean to get us down that train. I was like, oh gosh, here we go. We could be.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
No,
I would say, but I try to simplify thinking about it as like, how can we just express our shared humanity? How can we afford each other our shared humanity? We all want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. We want our children to be safe.
Yeah.
Even though we might totally disagree, those things are true. So can we connect there before we start having conversations? It feels like we're so, constantly just, there's just oh, you're that, I hate you. And that's not working. But I did have a question for you. You spoke a little bit about the estate, and I know how involved you are day to day. Was that something that you felt thrown into? Was that something that you could, like when your dad died, like you were magnetized to want to uncover and discover all that he left behind and share it with the world? Or was it something that was difficult to think about doing? Do you have any insights?
I mean, all of it's been insane. Not one second of it has been pleasant or anticipated. I mean, all of it's been like Mr. Toad's wild ride. I mean, I really decided early on after my dad passed away, because it was so insane here in LA, like with the really dirty lawyers and dirty managers and dirty everything coming out of the woodwork. I just moved back to New York and just tuned it out because I had a little kid. I was like, I got to raise my kid. I can't worry about this. Will be here later, but I can't deal with it, But I did have this Wildflowers record that he left that needed to be finished. And ultimately, we did American Treasure right after he died, me and the band. And that was our way of grieving him, just kind of going through and looking at him as a songwriter, not a hit maker, and just really kind of touching the humanity of Tom and making something beautiful for him. But all of it's been, we all lived to impress Tom. I mean, I won't deny it. I lived to make my dad smile or approve of everything that I did, because he was so awesome and fun and like so interested and so kinetic. And when he passed away, I mean, for my uncle, for me, for the band, for anybody that was ultra close to Tom, for us, it was like the sun being extinguished. And so it was just, to this day, it's just been so painful. You just see sort of things rearrange around it. And for me, it was just this, Rain. Tom was very careful about everything that he did. He was very involved in his artwork. He was very involved even in the way his lyrics were reprinted. I mean, he was just all about the fans, fan experience, right? I want the fans to be able to dive into this swimming pool, and I've built it perfectly for them, And there's a lot of editing and thought that went into his records. And it seems effortless. It really does. But I really did watch him do that. And we did the Wildflowers thing, and sort of just little by little, we've been putting the house in order. I mean, the whole archive, is from the 70s on. Wow. Like in 25 years, that will be, Tom would have been 100, So it's like, I feel like it just becomes more and more urgent to preserve it. And as it transitions over to a song basis, playlisting basis, that everything is going to move into this digital place other than people who are vinyl collectors, there's a need to preserve the film, like that has Vinegar Syndrome, and the video and the sort of ethos of the band visually. That if I don't do it, if I were to say go, write the great American novel or go make a couple indie films, I think I'm going to wake up and be 62 and it won't get done ever, right? So the question is, do I spend the next 15 years cleaning up a 40-year archive, and delegating it and sort of getting it rolling to the point where I can inch backwards from it, right? I wish that Mike Campbell and Ben Montent wanted to do the archive, but I can't blame them because who wants to relive the life they've just lived?
Right.
It would be so painful and awful for them. For me, it's sort of like it warms me a bit. It warms me a bit to be close to him.
Totally
it's insane, and it is maybe psycho that I do it.
No,
and
but
there are times my husband's like, I do question at times your mental health and wanting to look at and hear Tom all the time.
I get it.
But I care, and that's why I'm there. Yeah.
No, I get it. I think sometimes that brings the person closer, as painful as it is, and especially if you get a little bit of time. I don't know. Sometimes I dove right in after my brother passed and was with the music and started mixing and doing things with it, which was wonderful. But then I needed a break before I dove back in, like a very big break, like years and years. Yeah. So it really depends. For me. Yeah,
that's definitely coming for me.
Exactly. It's like something, and I think sometimes it's like something is propelling us when it does, and then pause it. It feels very necessary when I've been very passionate about the archive that I explore, my brother's archive, but sometimes it just that's not at all what is up for me, and it goes away. But when it is important, I follow that. I don't run from it. I'm like, okay, this isn't necessarily fun or easy all the time, but this is what I'm doing because I feel it's very important. So it sounds similar, like you're impassioned to get this archive together. And that's important, and maybe you'll take a break and make a film after that. Who knows?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I really hope so. But I have this little girl that is divine, and that she's so my number one job, and I feel like I have a weird thing with the Petty estate because we have so much unreleased music that is like A++ music that just didn't fit a sequence.
Right.
And you're like, who has that? Like, we've never, there's no model for how you put that kind of stuff out. Like, we're about to put out a version of Never Be You, the Heartbreakers track, that's like, feels like you've heard it all your life, you know? And it's...
And Long After Dark is getting a deluxe reissue with new songs?
on the deluxe.
Okay, that's on that. Okay,
that's a perfect example of, who knew there was 45 minutes left on the cutting room floor of like real tracks, and they're not like garbage tracks that should never come out. They're really, really good music written by Tom and Mike and Ben. And it's like, I think that someone should care enough to go through and make sure all this music gets released.
Yeah, absolutely.
New music, brand new music.
It's incredible.
Like, it is incredible. And it's like, we thought Wildflowers had this extra record and maybe that was the only thing in the archive. It turns out that is really not the case. There is prolific recording.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the sort of stuff where you're like, should we just not do it and then I die and that ever gets done? Like, I think
that's kind of, to me, it seems like that's what family's for, if they're up for it. And you seem up for it. That's what I love watching you. And I've noticed that you had a very prolific career yourself. And I noticed that it seemed like it timed out right around the time that you started sort of really spending more time on the estate stuff, that started waning a little. And look, this could be your journey for a decade while you make sure this is all good, and you'll still go back to your art and you'll still be creative, right? I mean, that's what I think.
Absolutely. And there's no choice. I don't have a choice.
Exactly. You don't have a choice.
It's weird. I started doing watercolors. I live on a farm, and I just paint all the time now. But somehow it has to come out. And at the end of the day, Rain, like I said, these are very high-class problems. This, I maybe never get to be a director again. It's like, you know what? We were really lucky to be part of Tom's orbit and have him be ours. And I treasure him, and I love him so much. And I love what the band was, and I love the way that they operated. I love the way they treated their crew. I love the way that he ran his business and really how he conceived of his business. Was very unique, where he was like, we don't need to have all the money, but we do need to keep our relationship with our fans, and we do need to treasure our musicians and our truck drivers and our crew. And these are the people that help us make our money. His perspective was so unique, so pure, and still very capitalist, you know, and successful, but it was never Megatron 5000 and get me the Pepsi sponsorship. Right. It was, this is not just for this record, it's forever. I'll be playing music forever. And I often say that to musicians that I meet that are like, it's not enough. I'm not big enough. It's never happened. It's like, it's happening. You're going out every night and you're playing, and you could be playing till you die. It could happen at any time. When did Lucinda Williams become popular? Like when she was like 54 or something, you know, it's like, I don't know. Music is, it's a calling. It's not just a vocation. It's a calling. You're a conjurer. You're expressing vibration to other humans. And you're soothing them and you're connecting with them. And that's, you know.
I love hearing how your dad, like, it sounded like his perspective too was about sustainability within a group of people that made up Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, that he never looked at it from the perspective of I am, you know, the most important, or he tried to create a sustainable model that was about sharing while maintaining his rights. And like you said, like, still, we live in a capitalist society. You need to, you know, certain things, but the way we treat people is very much, I don't know, a really beautiful thing to hear he was thinking about everyone, even down to the truck drivers and the tour managers and everyone that was involved.
It's the whole ecosystem. That's how your career happens. Tom always said, if somebody's talking about their career, they don't have one. If they come in and say the words "my career," right? Because if you have a career, we're all hip to it, you know. And that's it's much more about, you know, if you have a vision, you visualized who you're going to be or where you want to be in this landscape, in this field, and maybe you're creating a new landscape in pop or rock or music or whatever, coming out of your bedroom in Ohio, who knows? But it's like, to Tom, it was, this is me, this is authentic, this is our bubble of friends and family that we've moved to LA. We're staying in here. Our best friend, who was the lead singer of Mudcrutch way back when, is now the video director. All of these people, Tom was like, I have to provide for all these people and make this happen quick, right? As they start having kids and whatever, and they're broke musicians, you know, for him, it was always a matter of necessity.
So cool.
But it's...
That's so kind-hearted. And in this, you know, it's not common. Oh dear, we're past our point where we asked our dear friend Amy to join us, and not to, because I want to talk a little bit about the film let's
talk
out,
about the
like
project.
The Cameron Crowe, the long lost Cameron Crowe project.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Okay, so it's called Tom Petty.
It's called Heartbreakers Beach Party.
See, I knew I'd get it right.
And some people think it's a movie about a beach party, but it's not. It's a reference to Beach Blanket Bingo, the Annette Funicello vehicle.
I love Annette Funicello. I'm sure
Tom was a fan. And so
me too.
In 1982, the band makes their last record with Jimmy Iovine. They get Cameron Crowe, a young writer who's just written Fast Times at Ridgemont High, to come do what they call a video profile for MTV, which is supposed to be an on-camera interview a la Mark Goodman, Tabitha Soren, Kurt Loder, right? And instead, they make the weirdest fucking movie you have ever seen. It's cut like an episode of Jackass 20 years before its time, right? It's super visceral, verite movie. And it's rowdy. It's guys with their butts out on, you know, tour buses, and, you know, they're dressed up for You Got Lucky out in the desert and being goofy, and, you know, they're on the road and people are getting in fist fights. Like, there's like all this kind of madness in this movie that's fantastic. But then there's these heavy duty Cameron, Tom interviews in a limo, in our house, you know, in these different locales where my dad really bears his soul to Cameron in a way that I had no idea, you know, existed. So we got the Vinegar Syndrome film transferred. I watched it real quick. I was like watching a movie with my husband, and I just clicked on the link. And I just didn't talk to my husband for the rest of the night, and just curled up with the phone and fell asleep with the phone. Like, I was with my dad for an hour. Like, it was so amazing that we had this, that we had so much of him talking about everything.
Wow.
And Cameron went back, restored the film, added 30 minutes to it. It will screen theatrically around the world on the 17th and 20th
of October.
And it will then go to Paramount Plus early next year.
Wonderful.
And be available on VOD shortly after that. So it's such an amazing film. It's so much fun, and it is such a like total rowdy blast of rock and roll kind of iconicness.
Can't wait.
82, just height of their powers, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers,
So exciting. Cannot wait. I love knowing that you're guardian of the archive and finding these things and putting them out. It's wonderful. And especially because you're his daughter, so you know what he would have liked and not liked, and you're protective. I'm always sort of like, sometimes when you see archives that just seem to be exploited or something.
Yeah, no,
it's
you're
really
never
important
going to
have
see
those.
that happen with us.
Yeah, the family involved is so, and your background, it just works so beautifully with it. But I know it doesn't bring your dad back, and I just want to thank you for being on here and sharing so openly about him and about grief, and we're going to bring Amy Helm on the show now to chat with her. She's going to be here, but she's also going to be here for us.
Right. You guys look so cool. I love this.
I feel so cool up here. Rain's making me feel cool. I gotta tell you.
I feel
really
cool
nice.
up here with Adria, and now with you too. I've got you back here. I feel like this is a fun 3-girl posse right now. This is our first time in this new space at Licorice Pizza Records, which is in Studio City, California, and we're so happy to be here. And this is our new background. We're glad you like it. We've even got we've got vinyl hanging out because we're right here in a record store. So it's
I got a cool stack of drums there. I love it.
Exactly. Adria was telling me about your drumming, specifically talking about how impressed she was with how you drum.
Well, she's got this incredible music video that takes place in that legendary kitchen that she's sitting in, and
this is my friend's little workspace. I had to flee my house because my kids are home from school.
So this is not the legendary baby comeback kitchen, but if you see it, there's a live version, and she's playing drums there with Charlie, my daughter's father, and all of these incredible musicians, and bringing all of her like magic conjuring up into
It's incredible.
Amy looks so innocuous until she gets behind a microphone or a drum set, and then she's just tearing up the scenery.
She's like a goddess on.
Yeah, she is. She's like Queen Nepo baby right now, because this record is like every musician's kid is picking it up and listening to it. Chris Stills and Jacob Dylan are listening to it too. We're all just kind of like, oh my God, what a record. This is beautiful.
Love Chris. And I happened to listen the other night I had one headlight came into my head out of nowhere. And I put it on in the car. I never do things like this, and just rocked out to it on the drive home. I was like, wow, I can't believe that was in my head. Like, where was it from the 90s? I don't even remember when it came out, but it was just, it was one of those crazy moments where I was like, I'm going to do what I rarely do and actually put the song on that came in my head and enjoy it alone in a car. It was kind of cool. So you've been on tour a lot. Am I right in saying that? It looks like you've been on the road with this record.
Yeah, I was on the road the last couple of weeks, and now I'm most of my stuff is around the Northeast, so I won't be traveling too much more. I'm going down to Arkansas in a couple weeks, and then I'll be kind of doing weekend shows around here and in the Northeast. Yeah, I just came back from Colorado, which was incredible.
Wow. It looked
one of the
amazing.
coolest places. Yeah, I got to play this place that was like, have these it's just has these ancient ruins that just live in the backyard of where you set up outside to play, and it was pretty astonishing. Like, you go find these incredible pieces of pottery that people have laid out, but none of it's behind glass, and none of it's, it's like this really wild terrain that's part of these people's guest ranch. That was a pretty special show to do that.
It sounds in line with your mystical experience of being alive, Amy. You always seem to have a magical energy or incredible spaces around you. Silver City, though, because I do want to be able to bring this back to an achievement Amy's made this year that she's a friend, she's a part of my family in many ways, but she's also someone that I really as a listener of music, as a person who studies music and hears it all the time, and songwriting, and was taught to listen to music very carefully, I mean, she has this record that is so personal, so confessional, in this very loving, cathartic. I don't even understand. I don't even understand how she was able to put it all in one record, honestly. But there are lines in this record that will just bring me to tears just by thinking of them, because, like, the words you carry make you feel heavy, make you feel alone, but you were never alone. I mean, there are things in this record that are just so stunning, and obviously something that only someone who has played a lot, written a lot, achieved a lot could have done. And Amy never mentions her musical lineage, but, you know, she obviously took that lineage to heart in terms of having an authentic, real talent. And this record is just so impressive to me. And it is literally medicine. It makes me feel good. So I really wanted to make sure people heard about it. I'm going to continue to thump the Amy Helm drum myself, just because I've never discovered an artist that has moved me that strongly, just with one record. I mean, it just amazing achievement, Amy.
I don't even, I don't know, I don't know what to say except thank you. I mean, it's, you know, it just means more than really words can respond to know that it's moved you like that. And, you know, I just thank you so much for feeling that way about it and for talking that way about it. I mean, it kind of has, I'm kind of at a loss for words. But I'm definitely blushing, and I feel like I'm looking even more red.
The concept of it is, though, right? And just to embarrass you further, the concept is that these are stories about the women in your life who have touched you, and different ancestors, and sort of finding your own womanhood, even as a mother, as, you know, dealing with a divorce, dealing with all of the things that we deal with in life, and also dealing with, you know, you're Levon Helm's daughter. That's a big deal to people. You don't have to flaunt it, but you do run one of the most beautiful venues for real musicians to commune in. And it doesn't have recordings or anything like that. Real music fans go somewhere you provide with your family. And there's a generational preservation of not only vibe and character, but of real musical tradition going on with the Ramble, and with your children learning music too. I mean, you go up there and you're in Woodstock, you stop by Levon's barn, the invisible lady that keeps this little energy going is also making incredible records and touring and uplifting people every night, you know. But there's a lot to Amy Helm that just blows my mind, and that resonates with me so strongly in terms of that incredible character and preservation of music. So there you go. I don't want to embarrass Amy too much, but
well, Amy, is there anything you want to share about the record and the collaborators that you worked with, or do you want to just share how we can find you on social media or wherever you might be?
Sure. Well, you can find gigs on social media. It's all posted up there on the intranet in various places, and I'm just so lucky to get to collaborate with these incredible musicians that I always get to bring out with me, and that I made the record with. And I guess I would just say, just for a moment, just to talk about Adria, you put so beautifully and so overwhelmingly your response to the record. And I was thinking about, I don't know if I shared this with you, but the muse of this record was this young fan of mine whose name was Katie, and I only got to meet her twice. And the first time I met her, she was really like in the deep throes of her drug addiction. And the second time I met her was at the barn. We were having an open house, and it was maybe 6 or 7 months later, and I saw her across the room, and I could see that she was clean. You know, she was just like, she was beautiful and smiling and really inside her body, and really proud of herself, as she should have been. And then just a few months later, during the lockdown, I find out that she overdosed. and died and had a fentanyl overdose. And that, something about the timing, her, the moment, the quiet that was afforded all of us during COVID, it just pierced me in a different way. It certainly wasn't my first loss to drug addiction, or my first experience with that, but it just kind of opened something up. And this song about her kind of came rushing in. And then I didn't actually end up putting that one on the record. But that was sort of the muse. And once that one came through, the rest came in. And so I don't know. I feel like she is really one of the muses of this album, this young girl, Katie. So I just wanted to share that for some context about the record.
It's very full circle because we sort of started this conversation talking about losing our loved ones to drug overdose, but it's incredible to be able to transform pain, trauma, experience in life into just that experience, right? Not to hold on to it as a wound, but to say, hey, I can make something beautiful out of that. That actually opened my eyes to a bigger landscape that made me take a right turn into a better life. And I think when you're able to transform obstacles in that way, you do become sort of a conjurer, when you're like, I'm willing to accept given circumstances and get inspired by them and pivot with them.
Yeah.
Right.
And honoring, the people that we love that maybe gone too soon, or, in your case, like she became the muse, even though you didn't use the song, like the honoring of her spirit and creating spaces that share about the actual person, not about how they died, which I think often in our culture is very much like, let's talk about how and not the person. It's like that happens to a lot of people. So that's really cool too, is that we've had that opportunity. It's basically expounding on what you shared, Adria, which I totally agree with.
But also a lot of people think that, if they have problems or they're hung up on grief or they're hung up on depression or a relationship or whatever, that you're just gonna, when you're better, you'll be all better.
Right.
And you're never all better.
No.
You always need to go back to your tools.
Yeah.
You're always going to get hit with that first feeling of shittiness.
Yeah.
It's what you do with it that becomes your kung fu in life, right?
Exactly.
And so it's like, hey, I know I'm going to have shitty feelings from time to time, but what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, I love just to pitch Amy's record one more time, Money on 7, when she's like, what I've been through, I'll never tell. That's how it starts.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, how heavy is that? Start right there. And
Yeah.
then, she's talking about the hours of the restless morning, but by the time the sun comes in, she's all right.
Yeah.
But we have to go through those 3 hours to get to all right.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay to have a few shitty hours and struggle with something that's truly shitty.
Yeah.
And accept it and move on. But it doesn't mean you have to accept it right away and that it's not shitty. Of course it's shitty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think for me, that's
Not to
the
glaze
only way
over.
I've been able to deal with Tom dying is going, you know what? My dad loved me and my daughter so much. He would not want me to spend one day, not even one day, miserable. I would be dishonoring him
Exactly.
by not living up to my full potential and raising my child with joy. And that has carried me through. That simple concept of owning that is just not what he would want.
Yeah.
And really
that's
getting as
beautiful.
close to that spirit of, the wonderful, affable dude that magnetized everybody to him, which I imagine Levon was too.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's just,
It's honoring that spirit in these in these people, whoever they might be. In this case, your dad, your dad, my brother, my dad was like, I mean, you honor, that's the honoring, is like, what would they want?
Yeah.
Not so much of what would you want,
And also what they achieved. Like you were talking about, when we lose people to particularly to drugs, like that's such a focus, but it's the accomplishment, their triumphs of sobriety. Like when I think about this girl, Katie, just pulling it out of family members and just anybody who's an addict who loses their life to drugs, like but that time that I saw her, when her skin was clear and when she was smiling and we took a picture and she was happy and she was fulfilled because she had done it, that's kind of what, there's something about carrying that too. That's so important that I think doesn't get focused on when people lose their life to to their demons, you know?
Yeah, you're right. And I think as a child, you want to be like, fuck you, you did drugs and you're dead. Like, and you left us.
Right.
Yes.
And, you know, for me with my dad in particular, because I knew the circumstances, I don't feel that way. I feel like the guy had a broken hip. He was self-medicating and didn't have the right support around him to not do that when he passed away. But he had struggled with sobriety. He had been a heroin addict. He had openly talked about it. For brief periods he was. And he was always struggling with depression and sobriety and doing a great job with it and transforming it into really uplifting art and really helping and motivating other people to fight and be resilient in their lives. And I think that the fact that Tom was human and that he wasn't perfect and as much integrity and character as he had, he was a badass. He was tough.
Yeah.
You don't get that good by not being tough with everybody and having real craft-driven goals and practicing all the time, writing all the time, you know. He was tough and he was demanding. But man, he fought hard to be sober. He fought hard to be a dad. He fought hard to be in the relationships he was in. With his band, with his wives, with everybody. And you're right. The moments that he managed to do it are real accomplishment because it wasn't under easy circumstances, you know? And I do honor that, especially as an adult now looking at raising kids and how many people demand so much of you.
Yeah.
You know, like,
you two are a marvel to witness because you're doing the work of, first of all, honoring your larger than life parents, like that in itself, like to really do that work justice, you're truly honoring and you're taking that on. But then you also have your own creativity, which is astounding, and families and personal lives. And I think, you know, when you think about a really well-known artist, they're usually not managing other people's estates or doing, like, it's now become kind of an intrinsic part of your creativity to help bring theirs to the fore in a way. And I feel that too. It's sort of like you're connected to being the voice for what they're now voiceless, right? To speaking on through their work. And that's I think incredible.
Even more cool though is that Amy's creating new generations of musicians and teaching songwriting workshops and giving. She is building a community underneath her own career. That is generational and impressive to me, you know. And Tom, you know, my dad loved all of my friends that were up and coming musicians. They could go up to the house anytime, play any demo, play anything for him, and he wanted to hear it. I mean,
so cool.
He was so cool like that. And it's like, how do we keep supporting everybody? How do we keep growing this the way that he would want? And really, Tom Petty Radio is that space for us, right? Where we have all of these really great people that love great music and keep introducing gently new music.
That's
you
wonderful.
know, but man, it's been
undertaking.
It's been an undertaking, but it is an honor, and it is a humble honor when you have to fill those shoes as a woman in a music industry, right?
Yeah,
which is like there's no one that gets respected more at the table than a woman in the music industry, but no matter at what level. But it is a hell of an achievement to have children and make the art and honor the parents. It's a crazy achievement.
Yes, if I may, for both of you. Thank you.
I'll take it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I feel mentored by you, whether you like it or not. So thank you. And I just appreciate that you both had the time and you took the time to speak with me today on LaunchLeft. I think our audience is going to love this conversation, and I can't wait to see you live, Amy, if you come through. And when I come to Woodstock, I'm going to come to, obviously, I'll be coming down to the
barn. Would love that.
I'd love that. Yeah. And we'll connect too. Well, I'm going to see you soon this week.
Something at the barn.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I love being there in Woodstock, but that would be really cool. Yeah. Well, we'll keep talking now. I have all your information. Thanks to Adria. Thank you for connecting us. And hopefully we could all hang out in the Northeast maybe.
Absolutely. Anywhere.
All right. Well, thanks for being on.
You got to catch Amy, though. It's pretty hard to pin her down. I'll tell you. I'm trying to get on the calendar for like 2 months. You know, I'm still working on it.
We did it today with Zoom, with technology. We did it. Thank you both so much. If there's anything else you want to share, great. Otherwise, we're going to say sayonara.
Thank you both for having me here. It was really special.
Oh, I know. We're going to play one of your videos out. Do you know which one?
Yeah, I think we ended up going with a live video from Berlin because the other stuff was getting complicated to figure out.
Great.
So,
Do you know the name of that song?
I think it's Money on 7.
Okay,
Yeah.
Money on 7, live from Berlin. One. We're going to play that out. Thanks again for being on LaunchLeft podcast.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, Amy.
I wouldn't say it was hers. I lay claim to all my blessings and own my curses. 4 a.m. I'm trembling, 5 a.m. I'm torn, 6 a.m. I'm terrified, always be alone. Put your money on 7 when the sun comes back in. I'm gonna catch the spark like I'm dry kindling. Yes, I'm blazing again, blazing again. Who knows, who knows, who knows, who knows about this love I've got to give. What will I do? What will I do? If no one comes to love me the way I hope they do. This world can be so beautiful, it can be so cold. My love don't need a cosign, it's perfect in its whole. 4 a.m. I'm trembling, 5 a.m. I'm torn, 6 a.m. I'm terrified, always be alone. Put your money on 7 when the sun comes back in. I'm gonna catch a spark like I'm dry kindling. Yes, I'm blazing again, blazing again. Who knows, who knows, who knows, who knows about this love I've got to give. Who knows, who knows, who knows, who knows, who knows, who knows about this love I've got to give. so much.
LaunchLeft aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. LaunchLeft begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.